Picture this. You're on a routine flight to Chile when disaster strikes in the most remote place imaginable. The nearest civilization is hundreds of miles across impossible terrain. Winter is approaching. Your supplies are nearly gone. And then you hear the news that changes everything. The search has been called off. You are officially abandoned. What would you do to survive when all hope seems lost? How far would you go when pushed to the absolute limit? So stow your tray tables, fasten your seatbelts, and prepare for some turbulence, because this is Final Boarding Call. Hello, and welcome to Final Boarding Call. I am your disaster-obsessed host, Alice.
And I'm Zach, the dedicated homebody husband, house cleaner, father, lover.
Oh, wow. I think it is safe to say that you are extra homebody this week because Zach and Aria just returned from a trip from hell.
I thought you were just saying I was extra, which is also accurate.
You are extra, but
I am what they say. I got that dog in me.
Oh my God.
Hot dogs.
Hot dogs. He actually does consume an alarming amount of hot dogs.
It's not alarming.
No,
it's just,
it is.
It's cheap food. It's the way I was raised. You're lucky I can't find good packets of ramen anymore. Now they're all crushed.
Ugh. So we took a family trip to DC last weekend. This trip had been planned as just a couple's trip. Zach and myself, taking like a little anniversary trip to Washington, D.C. We were going to nerd out, do some history stuff. Then, did I tell the story on here about the first class ticket home from...
Yes, I think so.
Okay, so a couple months ago, Zach came with me on a work trip, and on the first night of that, my family called and said, Aria's having an absolute meltdown, and Zach needs to come home right now. And the only ticket available was a first class ticket on like the next flight. So that's what I got him. And Zach flew first class. But after that experience, we decided that we were not going to take any just us trips for a little while.
A long while it's turning into.
A long while. And because these tickets that I bought were non-refundable, we bought one for Aria too. And this trip was horrible and chaos from the moment we arrived at the airport. It was just hell. But the cream of the coffee here, cream on top of the coffee, was
Nobody says
Zach
that.
No, I know. I'm making it a thing. Fetch.
It's not going to catch on, Gretchen.
Okay, I'm going to keep trying. On the return flight, I had to fly directly to Las Vegas for a work event because that's my life. So Zach was flying with Aria solo home.
3-year-old child, all right? She doesn't sit still. She has like a magic 8-ball of energy in her back pocket at all times.
And she gave you a run for your money. So everything, is going okay. And then the flight gets delayed. And folks, I've only got a couple rules when you are flying that I am religious about. 1, never check a bag. 2, never have a layover. 3,
She's making them up as she goes.
I'm making them up as I go. I don't know. Don't talk to the person next to you. That's just a me thing. I typically do not like talking to people on airplanes.
How do you expect to make any friends with that kind of attitude?
I don't want any friends. We broke all of those rules on this trip. So we had to check Aria's
stroller and car seat.
And car seat.
And at that point, you might as well just check your regular bag.
Yep, just check everything. And then on top of that, this flight had a layover. And so Zach and Aria, their flight to the layover is getting delayed to the point where they are going to miss the layover. And then eventually the flight just gets canceled. And they were like, oh, we'll fly you out at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
The next day.
5:30 in the morning with a toddler who wants nothing more than to just be home. We call me a homebody. You should see this child.
Oh, she's always ready to be back in her own bed. because we had already had such a hellish trip, and we could do a whole podcast on this horrible trip, but we're not going to. But because it had already been so bad, I went like full psycho rogue and bought a brand new one-way ticket for Zach and Arya on Southwest. We were flying American, and I was like, fuck it. Southwest can get you guys home today. So I did that. I bought them 2 brand new tickets. Little did we know.
Could they? Could they get me home same day?
Get you home same day? No, because that flight got delayed so much.
That one only got delayed by an hour, but it was a close connection.
Yes.
So then our new connection is in Phoenix. Our plane takes off. I'm like, okay, we're going to do this. We're gone. We're going to get home. Nope. Okay. It was delayed enough that somehow the other flight took off to the Springs almost 15 minutes early. It was scheduled for like 6:20 in Arizona, and it left at like 6:05, which doesn't make sense.
And it left without Zach and Arya.
Yeah, we landed at 6:10.
So even though I had bought them a whole new plane ticket, they still got stuck in Phoenix. Mm-hmm. I'm so sorry. Arya was such a good sport about it, though. Like,
No, she was not.
She's 3. I mean,
she was miserable. Like, she barely slept, which means I barely slept. I was pissed. It turned into a 28-hour travel extravaganza to fly from Washington, D.C. back to Colorado. That's absurd.
It was a nightmare. We should have just flown in and out of Denver. I mean, I hate DIA, which everybody on this podcast knows about my passionate disdain of Denver International Airport. However, it would have been better than having a layover.
I just don't think
That's my rule,
bad.
folks. Do not do layovers. Do whatever you got to do to avoid one, because it'll fuck up your travel plans. Meanwhile, I made it to Las Vegas perfectly fine. I had no layover, and my flight took off right on time. No, I felt horrible. I was devastated. Woof. Okay, so anyway, where were we? We were talking about hosts, and I'm the host, and you're the host, and you're a homebody, and... Okay, before we begin, if you're still with us, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We almost never do this kind of chit-chatty on the top. This is not normal for our podcast, but
She was eager beaver to tell you why I'm never getting on a plane again.
That's so true. Oh my God, it was really bad.
You even promised me no flying until we go to Costa Rica.
And it's true.
And then 10 minutes later, you're like, but we got these coupons back from Southwest.
We did get some flight
We should
credits.
just fly back to this place.
No, it's fine. Okay, I won't do that to you. I fly constantly. Okay, Zach, this episode, absolutely one of my favorite flight stories. I say that a lot, but this one is mind-bogglingly crazy. And I think it's going to be like our first episode of the pilot that gets sucked out of a window. I think it's going to stick with people.
All right, I'm feeling it. I know which one it is.
The Fook? Okay. All right. I hate this already. This episode is based on extensive research. In the Time magazine article, a survivor recalls the harrowing 1972 plane crash behind Society of the Snow by Megan McCluskey. Sure. Cool last name, Megan. And then also My Favorite Murder, episode 307, Fun Cracker Reveal. All of those are listed in the show notes. All right, Zach, I'm going to jump in.
Go ahead. Jump.
October morning.
She didn't jump.
October morning, 1972. Montevideo, Uruguay. A group of young men board a Fairchild FH227D turboprop at Carrasco International Airport. It might be Carrasco. They are members of the Old Christians Club rugby team. They are heading to Chile for an exhibition match against the Old Boys Club. That is literally what it's called. The Old Boys Club.
Not something I'd want to be a part of today.
A name would not fly in 20... What year is it? 25. All right, so we're going to close our eyes and picture these men for a moment, if we can call them that. They are barely out of their teens. They're like 18, 19, 20. They're full of life. Among them is 19-year-old medical student Roberto Canessa. There's also Nando Parrado. He's 22, and he's traveling with his mother, actually.
Mommy.
I know. His mother, Eugenia, and his 19-year-old sister, Susanna. The youngest of the group is 18-year-old Carlitos, who is the son of a famous Uruguayan painter whose infectious laugh can be heard even over the drone of conversation as they board. The Fairchild wasn't exactly a luxury liner. The pilots nicknamed it the Lead Sled because it felt underpowered and sluggish. However, it was reliable.
It worked.
And shit, for a charter flight like this, it would get the job done. Captain Julio Cesar Ferradas, with 5,000 flight hours, was at the controls alongside co-pilot Lieutenant Colonel Dante Hector Lagurara. The first leg, Zach, actually went smoothly. It was a short hop from Montevideo to Mendoza, Argentina, which is on my bucket list to go visit. Really want to go to Argentina, where they plan to refuel before crossing the Andes, also known as the Andes, if you're fancy. As they approached Mendoza that afternoon, towering thunderclouds blocked their path to Chile like a wall of steel and stone. The weather in the mountains was brutal, the kind that turns routine flights into death traps. So they had no choice but to spend the night in Mendoza waiting for conditions to improve so they could fly out. So now it's October 13th. Friday the 13th. If any of them were superstitious, they probably should not have gotten back on that plane. The weather had improved slightly, but massive cloud formations still obscured the peaks. Captain Ferradas made the decision to proceed, following the standard route south to Malague, then west through Planchon Pass, a lower altitude corridor through the Andes Mountains that would be safe below the highest peaks, right? So it's a lower elevation than like flying over the tops of the Andes Mountains.
It's a road, but for planes.
100%. Yes, exactly. It's like a pass. At 2:18 p.m., 2:18 p.m., the Fairchild lifted off from Mendoza's runway. The passengers settled in for what should have been a very routine 90-minute flight. I mean, they're going to be up and down quick. But as they climbed towards the mountains, they were met with swirling clouds, violent turbulence that really turned the cabin into a shaking, bucking nightmare. At 3:21, co-pilot Lagurara radioed air traffic control. We are over Curacao and turning north. This was a fatal mistake. Looking at his instruments through the turbulent clouds, he had misjudged their position by more than 40 miles. They were not over the Chilean city of Curacao at all. They were still deep in the heart of the Andes, surrounded by peaks that rose like teeth high into the thin air. Believing that they had safely crossed the mountains, Lagurara began descending towards what he thought was Santiago. In reality, he was flying the aircraft straight into a wall of rock and ice at 14,000 feet above sea level. Nando Parrado, dozing against his window seat, was jolted awake by the engines suddenly roaring to full power. Through the swirling clouds, he caught a glimpse of something that made his blood freeze. Black rock rushing past the windows, so close that he could have opened the window, reached out, and touched it.
I don't believe that because wings are really big on planes.
All right.
Why don't you love me?
No, I love you so much. Fasten your seatbelts, came the shout from the cockpit. The rugby players who had been joking about the turbulence just moments before suddenly fell silent. Through their small windows, those who could see outside watched in horror as the aircraft hurtled towards a razor-sharp ridge of granite and snow. At 3:34 p.m., traveling at 220 miles per hour, the Fairchild's right wing struck the mountain ridge. The impact was like a bomb going off. The wing was sheared completely off, spinning backwards with such violence that it tore away the entire tail section of the aircraft, taking with it the navigation equipment, the flight attendant, and several passengers who were sucked out.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's why they say buckle your seatbelts, guys.
Oh, God, it's brutal. The left wing struck another outcrop and was also torn away, the propeller slicing through the fuselage like a buzz saw. The remains of the aircraft, little more than a flying tube filled with terrified people, slid down the mountainside at 220 miles per hour, bouncing and tumbling across glacier ice for more than a half a mile before slamming into a snowbank with the force of an earthquake. When the screaming metal finally came to rest, an eerie silence fell over the Valley of Tears, broken only by the hiss of escaping air and the moans of the injured. 12 people had died instantly, including our captain, whose body was crushed in the collapsed cockpit. Of the 45 souls who had boarded, only 33 were still breathing, and many of those were barely clinging to life. Imagine opening your eyes in hell. That is what the survivors faced when consciousness returned. The fuselage had come to rest at 11,500 feet above sea level on a glacier between towering peaks that rose another 10,000 feet on either side.
So it could go up to 30,000 feet? Is that what I just heard?
No, 21.
Okay. I don't know what. Oh, yeah, because they stopped at 11. For some reason, I thought you said it could go up another 20,000 feet.
10,000.
Okay.
Another 10,000 feet.
I was like, good
on
Lord,
either side.
what the hell is 30,000 feet?
No. The air was so thin that simply breathing was a struggle. Every inhalation felt like drowning in reverse.
Yes, they weren't from Colorado.
No, they are not at all.
But still.
Roberto Canessa, thrown forward during the crash, slowly pulled himself upright and surveyed the carnage around him. Bodies were twisted in unnatural positions. Blood splattered the walls, and the bitter wind howled through gaping holes in the fuselage. His medical training kicked in as he began to triage the wounded. But what could a 19-year-old medical student do with no supplies, no equipment, and no hope of outside help? Also, at 19, I mean, maybe schools are different wherever he goes, but a 19-year-old medical student in the States would be like, I could check your pulse. Like, at 19, you're like pre-med. You're not ready to perform in surgery or do anything crazy.
But, I think you have to, yes, consider that these people may not be from the U.S.
Yeah.
The U.S. is making people soft, but that's okay.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
But also
Welcome to the Joe Rogan Show. No, I'm kidding. Okay.
In the 70s, it was probably a little bit different than what it is now. They probably did a little bit more hands-on at a younger age than learning in a school setting.
I hope so. They better hope so. Because he's
needed.
What they've got. He's what they've got. Nando Parrado lay unconscious with a skull fracture, blood trickling from his ears. His mother, so he is the one who was traveling with his mom, she had been killed instantly. And his sister, Susanna, was barely alive. Man, Benji's really trying to kill the mood here.
I don't know what his problem is tonight.
No. He's antsy. Maybe he senses a skunk out there or something. Anyway, his mom had been killed instantly. His sister, Susanna, was barely alive. Her body broken by the impact. Around them, other passengers moaned in agony from compound fractures, internal injuries, and hypothermia that was already setting in as the sun disappeared behind the peaks. Those first hours were pure survival instinct. The uninjured passengers worked frantically to seal the gaping holes in the fuselage. So, Zach, would that be your top priority here if you were in this situation?
I think if you're landing and the sun is already setting, you can't get all of these people ready to go quick enough to even hope to find anything. So yeah, I would just try to make it as warm as possible inside the what's left of the plane.
Yep. So that's exactly what they decided to do. So they had seat cushions, they had luggage, literally anything that they could find. They were trying to
make
plug
a wall,
up
partially
these
cover the hair.
They had to create some sort of shelter fast because the nighttime temperatures at this altitude plummet to 30 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. But we are talking 30 below. Crazy. Obviously, at that temperature, exposed skin freezes solid in mere minutes. It's not survivable. Duh. The captain of the rugby team, Marcelo Perez, took charge despite his own injuries. So this guy is a captain through and through. He is barely 20. And he is suddenly responsible for the lives of more than 30 people that are in conditions that would challenge the most experienced mountaineers in the world. He organized the survivors into teams. Some to tend to the wounded, others to seal the aircraft, and others to inventory supplies. What team are you on?
What team would I be on?
Yeah, what team are you?
I don't know.
I think you're seal the aircraft. Because you can lift and carry heavy stuff.
Oh, so I'm just a fucking mule.
I'm probably inventory. I love inventorying things.
I know, you're a fucking weirdo.
I mean, I wouldn't in this situation. I'd be really sad because, as we're going to find out,
I mean, we have 9 aspirin.
it's not great. Okay, so let's figure out what they inventoried here, folks. 8 small chocolate bars, a few bags of candy, 3 small jars of jam, a tin of mussels, some dates and crackers, a few bottles of wine, and that was it. There are 33 people currently alive.
Well, there's going to be 33 drunk people alive here soon.
Not on a few bottles of wine.
Okay, there's going to be 11.
This is brutal. So that first night was horrible. They huddled together in the cramped fuselage, taking turns in the middle where it was the warmest, which is a survival method of what species?
Huddling in the middle?
Taking turns, rotating to huddle in the middle. Penguins. Really, really cool survival tactic that penguins use when they are
chilly.
In insane, actually very similar situations. So you huddle together, you rotate people from the outside into the middle and let them warm up and then put them back on the outside. They rotated positions every few hours so nobody would freeze to death. The injured moaned constantly, sounds that echoed off the metal walls. So comforting, like horrible. By morning, 5 more were dead, including co-pilot, who had spent his final hours begging someone to find his pistol and end his agony. The survivors who remained stared out at a landscape that belonged on an alien planet. Endless white snow and black rocks stretched in every direction as far as the eye could see. No sign of human life, no hope of rescue. But rescue was coming, right, Zach?
As we've learned, probably not.
I mean, surely, in this vast nothingness, they would be spotted, right? If somebody sent.
Well, I don't think it's a spotting. I think it's usually they were supposed to arrive here at this time. How long does it take before they're like, uh-oh, something's wrong?
Well, the aircraft had been in radio contact right up until the crash.
Yeah, but they were on a 90-minute flight.
Oh, boy. The Chilean Air Search and Rescue Service launched operations immediately, but they were looking in the wrong place.
Because they told them they had cleared the mountains and were turning north.
Do
they not have radar back then?
I don't know, baby. It's a weird teeny plane. And 2, it's 1970. What year are we? 2?
2.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? But in any case, they were not looking in the right place. The search focused on the valleys of Chile, not the high peaks of Argentina. Day after day, the survivors watched aircraft pass overhead, sometimes close enough to see, but never close enough to see them.
Yeah.
One of the passengers had recovered a small transistor radio from the wreckage. Roy Harley, an engineering student, that's helpful to have on the plane, rigged a longer antenna using electrical wire stripped from the plane's systems. Huddled around this tiny device, they listened desperately to news reports about their fate. Now, I am a Harry Potter nerd.
Indeed.
Friends and family. I don't read because I'm so busy, but I love listening to the audiobooks, Jim Dale's audiobooks of Harry Potter. And in the very last Harry Potter book, there are multiple scenes where Harry and Hermione and Ron are like traveling on this crazy journey, and they're listening to a little radio, like trying to figure out what's happening to everybody else in the world. And that's what this reminds me of, like that desperate sense of just, this is insane, and we're hoping to hear good news.
It might be a little bit different because
this is real.
Well, it's real, but also Harry, Ron, and Hermione were technically okay.
That's fair. They were listening actually to hear who had died from their families. This is like the opposite of that.
Does anybody even know we're here?
Woof. Yeah. For 8 days, hope flickered. Then came the announcement. The search was being called off. All aboard Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 had been presumed dead. Wow. The silence that followed that announcement, obviously, inside the fuselage, was pretty profound. Some wept, some prayed, and others just stared at the radio in disbelief. There were 28 men and women, averaging barely 20 years old, and the world had written them off as corpses. But it was Gustavo Coco Nikolic who found the strength to reframe their despair. Looking around at his devastated friends, he managed a grim smile. "Hey boys, there's some good news. They've called off the search." When someone angrily demanded how on earth that could be good news, Nikolic replied, "Because it means we're going to get out of here on our own."
He knows how to keep the positivity.
Do we clap or do we punch Nikolic?
I'm going to be honest. I'm not sure I would have stayed on the plane for 8 days anyway.
Well, let's talk about what they're going to make a game plan. So let's see what they're going to do to figure this out. As the days crawled by, hunger became a living thing that gnawed at their insides. I mean, they are not eating because there is no food. So your mind becomes foggy, your movements become sluggish. Simple tasks like gathering snow became monumental efforts. They tried everything, chewing on leather belts and shoes, eating the cotton stuffing from the seats, even attempting to consume toothpaste and deodorant. Nothing worked. At 11,500 feet above sea level, with sub-zero temperatures...
There's no animals.
There are no animals. There's no vegetation. There's really no, like, ecosystem.
There is no thing.
No, you have snow, you have rock. Roberto Canessa was the first to voice what others had been thinking. They are a bunch of alive people, and they are with a bunch of not alive people.
Do a little bit of cannibalism.
They are starving.
They've been frozen for days.
Yeah. However, these are not just random bodies.
Yeah, don't make the one kid eat his mother.
These are the bodies of their friends, their teammates.
Yeah.
However, Zach, as you just brought up, they had been preserved perfectly.
Yeah.
The bodies contained protein, and they were starving.
They were desperate for protein.
Desperate. The discussions that followed were unlike anything that I at least could imagine. They are devout Catholics.
Oh.
They are raised in a very conservative society. And they are debating whether to cross the ultimate taboo. Some were horrified by the suggestion. Others cried as they considered their situation.
Yeah.
And a few, driven to the edge by hunger, quietly admitted that they had been already considering
thinking about it. Yeah.
Canessa presented his case with clinical precision. Our common goal is survival, but what we lack is food. We had long since run out of the meager pickings that we'd found on the plain, and there was no vegetation or animal life to be found. After just a few days, we had the sensation that our own bodies were consuming themselves just to remain alive. He paused, looking around at faces that had grown gaunt with starvation. The bodies of our friends and teammates, preserved outside in the snow and ice, contained the vital, life-preserving proteins that would keep us alive. But could we do it? The debate raged for days. Days. Some drew parallels to religious communion. Wasn't Christ asking his disciples to consume his body? Others found justification in Scripture about laying down one's life for friends. But theological arguments couldn't erase the horrors of what they were even contemplating doing.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what the good book says because they are in a position where they are either going to die or they are going to eat their friends.
It's crazy. Like, we were at a birthday party with a whole bunch of our friends today, and the idea of eating one of them it's so hard to put yourself in the perspective of these people. Okay, so later one survivor described going out into the snow to pray for guidance, feeling that without divine consent, consuming the flesh of friends would violate their memory. The group agonized over whether they were becoming savage or doing what was absolutely necessary to survive. Finally, they made a pact. If anyone died, the others had permission to use their body to survive. It was Canessa who took the first step, using a shard of broken glass from the cockpit to cut a small piece of flesh from one of the bodies. He swallowed it like medicine, gagging as he forced it down.
You know, they don't have a way to cook it, so.
Cooked. One by one, the others followed his example. Not all at once. Some held out for more days before hunger overcame revulsion. But eventually, every survivor made the same choice. They dried strips of flesh in the sun, making it easier to consume. So they're jerkying it.
Yeah.
They avoided looking at faces. They tried to think of it simply as protein, but there was no escaping what they were doing. The emotional toll was devastating. These were not strangers on a plane. These were classmates and friends and teammates. Some of them were neighbors growing up together. Javier Methel and his wife Liliana were the last to participate, their deep religious convictions making the act almost unbearable. Only when someone suggested that it was like receiving Holy Communion did Liliana finally agree. Nando Parrado made one absolute rule. The bodies of his mother and sister were off limits. He would guard them with his life. It was a small gesture of dignity in a situation that had stripped away almost everything human. And then, just when we think that things can't get worse, Zach.
Snowstorm rolls in.
October 29th, 17 days in. The survivors had settled into an uneasy routine, gathering snow for water, maintaining their shelter, caring for the injured, and preparing their meals. Some were even beginning to believe that they might somehow survive. Close to midnight, as most of them slept, huddled together in the fuselage, they heard a sound like thunder rolling down the mountain. But this was not a storm, Zach.
It was an avalanche.
It was an avalanche. Tons of snow and ice roaring down the slope, and it struck the fuselage with the force of a freight train, instantly burying it under 8 feet of snow. 8 people were killed immediately, smothered in seconds as the snow filled every available space. Among the dead was Marcelo Perez, the team captain, who had held the group together through the worst days. Also killed was Liliana, the only woman who was still alive and the last one who had consumed any of the available meat. And she really was like a mother figure to everybody else. Picture the terror of the 19 survivors now trapped inside what had become a frozen tomb. The snow packed around them like concrete, cutting off almost all airflow. In the pitch darkness, they could hear each other gasping for breath as their oxygen levels dropped towards 0. Nando Parrado, despite his own injuries, grabbed a metal pole from the luggage rack and desperately began jabbing at the cockpit windscreen, trying to break through to the surface. After what felt like hours, he managed to create a small hole that would at least let air come in so that they could survive until morning.
It was a good start.
It took them most of the next day to dig an escape tunnel through the packed snow. When they finally emerged, they faced another 3-day blizzard that forced them back into their frozen prison.
It is a frozen prison, but now that they've got some airflow, honestly, it's probably warmer than it was being tightly in a snowball. I mean, picture an igloo. You are keeping the elements away from you. You don't have the wind. You don't have a bunch of craziness going on. It was probably warmer, fully covered in snow. Still bitter cold.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I bet
sure
it was
it
better
sucked.
than original, honestly.
I don't know.
Besides the darkness, that probably sucked.
Yeah. I really don't know, because I've been to like ice bars before. Bars that are made entirely of snow and ice, and they are cold as shit.
Yeah.
Freezing.
But they're keeping their AC as low as possible, too, trying to keep everything frozen.
I guess that's fair. They spent those days trapped in underground with the bodies of their 8 newly deceased friends, and when hunger struck, they faced the horror anew. One survivor later recalled the terrible texture and taste: soft, greasy flesh streaked with blood. The act of consumption was nauseating, but they forced themselves to continue because the alternative was death.
I thought you were about to say that this person just tasted terrible compared to the other.
With Perez dead, leadership fell to cousins Eduardo and Fito Strauch, who took over the grim task of harvesting flesh and distributing it to the others. They developed a systematic approach, cutting the meat into small strips, drying it in the sun, and rotating it carefully to ensure that everybody got their share. 3 more deaths followed over the next weeks. Arturo Guara died from infected wounds.
That is about the time where you're like, if you had injuries that were external that you couldn't properly treat, that's when you're going to get the gangrene, you're going to get all the stuff.
100%. Yes. Rafael Echavaran succumbed to injuries. And finally, Numa Turcati, whose revulsion at eating human flesh had caused him to consume far less than the others, wasted away to nothing and died on day 60.
Yeah, 2 months with minimal food.
The remaining 16 survivors now faced a terrible truth. They were running out of bodies to eat. And winter was coming to the Andes, which would bring temperatures that would kill all of them. If they were going to escape this frozen hell, they had to come up with a game plan. Let's do a game plan. Let's get the fuck out of here.
Okay, well, one, you guys were really fucked up by waiting this long to act of any kind. Okay, I get it. They had hope. They had the radio. They thought they were going to be found. You were also told the moment you knew, or the moment that anyone knew, that you weren't going to be found, you should have figured out if you were going to eat these people, skinned them, got everything set up, and skedaddled. The fact that they just sat there doing nothing for 2 months is absurd. That's the hardest way to survive, is by doing nothing.
They're like 18 and 19. God, me at 18? Forget it. I was hopeless. I absolutely would have died. The plan was audacious that they are coming up with. But it is not audacious to Zach, who would have done it day 2.
No, I could get behind them listening to the radio and all the stuff. So like that week and a half that they were there, you got to get everybody working, able to move. I can be on board with that. 2 months, no. That's terrible.
Well, here's what's going to happen, Zach. 3 of the men are going to attempt to climb out of the high valley, cross the towering peaks that surround them, and somehow reach civilization in Chile. Just in Chile.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Anywhere in Chile.
They would have no mountaineering equipment, no maps,
no water,
no compass. Literally makeshift gear fashioned from aircraft debris, and the desperate hope that they could do this would work. Roberto Canessa and Nando Parrado volunteered for what everybody understood was a suicide mission. They would be joined initially by Antonio Tintin Vicentin. To prepare for the journey, they received larger rotations of flesh to get some strength up, while the others took on their daily tasks to allow the expedition team to rest and train. Using materials scavenged from the plane, they created equipment that would have been laughable if their situation was not so goddamn desperate. They fashioned crude snowshoes from seat cushions and luggage straps. So
that's great.
Yeah, they're gonna try and obviously create wider feet so they can stay on top of the snow.
Well, it's not just wider feet. I mean, they are creating a barrier between their feet and, I mean, they weren't planning for this trip. They don't have proper snow gear.
So
you're creating an insulation layer from your foot touching the snow.
Smart. All right, that one. Zach approved. Sunglasses.
Well,
which is so
snow blindness
important.
happens quick, especially at that elevation, that close to the sun. I mean, it's brutal.
Yep. They were improvised from green plastic sun visors and bra straps.
Might as well be.
Most critically, they sewed together a sleeping bag using insulation from the aircraft's rear, electrical wire for thread, and waterproof fabric from the air conditioning unit. They are making some shit work.
Imagine if they had still had their full strength at that time.
I know. I feel like they should have been preparing for this during the time where they were listening to the radio. But look, I can't critique them because I'm not in their shoes.
Correct.
Yeah.
I am just here to give everyone the advice. It doesn't really pay to sit and do nothing.
Yep. Correct. All right. December 12th, day 61.
All right. That was a lot of stuff in a day.
The three men set out in conditions that would challenge experienced mountaineers and the best equipment. They were attempting to climb nearly 14,000 feet with improvised gear, minimal food, and bodies weakened by 2 months of starvation. The climb was a nightmare. The thin air at altitude meant that every step was agony, which for people that come from low elevation and are now asked to climb fucking mountains, that's rough. Yeah. The snow was sometimes soft enough that they sank to their hips.
Yeah.
Sometimes crusted hard enough to slice through their improvised clothing. On the first night, huddled together in their makeshift sleeping bag on a narrow rocky ledge, they wondered if they had made a fatal mistake. The wind howled around them with the voice of a living thing, and the cold was so intense that it felt like knives were stabbing them. But for 3 days, they climbed the seemingly endless wall of ice and rock. The survivors at the crash site could actually see them.
Making progress.
Itty bitty little dots, just making their way up the white face of the mountain.
Imagine still being on that plane, though, how important that must have felt to be like, they're moving still, they're going.
Yes. I mean, truly. They are the rescue mission.
Yeah.
That's it at that point. If
they
that
are
fails,
the only hope, and you can see them going.
If that fails, you're fucked. Like, y'all are gonna die. On the third morning, Canessa and Parrado reached what they hoped was the summit. They had told themselves that once they crested this final ridge, they would see green valleys of Chile just spreading below them. Civilization, rescue.
They didn't.
They saw an endless sea of snow-covered peaks stretching to every horizon. They weren't at the edge of the Andes. They were in the heart of them. And Chile was dozens of miles away across some of the most treacherous terrain on Earth. The devastation was brutal. I mean, at this point, I would just nope out.
Yeah. Go find that co-captain's gun and just be like, catch you guys later.
No, I would probably honestly just let hypothermia take me at that point. Like, yeah, I would just, because once you get to the point of like past the freezing cold and you get to like the warm sensation of hypothermia,
then you just sleep.
Then you're just, yep, that's it. Anyway, they didn't do that because they're way cooler than me. I should not be chosen for this mission, and I wasn't, so that's great. Vizintin, looking at their faces, understood immediately. We're dead, he said simply. But Nando Parrado refused to give up. He's like, let's do this thing. Studying the terrain with the eye of a man who had nothing to lose, he spotted 2 distant peaks that seemed lower than the rest of them, with what might be a valley leading toward them. Oh. It would mean more days of walking through this frozen wasteland, but it was that or do the Alice plan, which they had a lot riding on this. They had people back in the fuselage that were counting on them. They made the decision to send Vizintin back to the crash site with news of their discovery, while Canessa and Parrado continued with what remained of their food. It was a desperate gamble, splitting up in these conditions. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. For 7 more days, the 2 men pushed deeper into the Andes, following a very narrow valley that seemed to lead towards these 2 distant peaks. They were walking skeletons at this point. Their bodies had consumed
Skinny,
the last of their
belly.
muscle tissue. But slowly, gradually, the terrain began to change.
And get easier.
The snow grew thinner. Patches of bare rock appeared. And then after 9 days of walking through a world of black and white, they saw something that actually made them cry.
A plant, just like Wally.
Green. They saw a patch of vegetation, the first sign of life that they had seen in well over 2 months. On December 20th.
Yeah, I mean, they're damn near 3 months.
On December 20th, as they followed a small stream down into the valley, they spotted 3 men on horseback on the opposite side of the river. After 69 days of isolation, they were looking at They were looking at other human beings.
You can't judge me for that. My friends would have been so upset if I didn't take that opportunity.
So true. The river, however, was too deep and too fast to actually cross, and the noise of the water made conversation impossible. One of the horsemen, a Chilean arriero named Sergio Catalan, indicated through gestures that he would be back the next day.
It's like, please don't
Yes,
go.
I would be like, hi, come to me. That night, Canessa and Parrado could barely sleep. After more than 2 months of hell, rescue was so close that they could almost touch it. When Catalan returned the next morning, they communicated by writing notes on paper and throwing them across the water tied to rocks.
Why didn't he just cross the river?
It's deep and fast to cross.
Imagine how much that means to these guys that haven't.
I mean, at this point, it's like, you get that you make a raft.
Get a fucking rope.
I mean, truly.
Throw it over.
I don't know.
We'll tie it around a rock and you can come over.
It's fine. They're communicating via rocks.
Carrier pigeons.
Yes. Parrado's message was brief, but carried the weight of the entire ordeal. He explained that he came from a crashed airplane in the mountains, that he was Uruguayan, and that they had been walking for 10 days. He mentioned having a wounded friend up there and 14 injured people still at the plane. They desperately needed help. They had no food. They were extremely weak and they couldn't walk. Catalan read the notes, made signs that he understood, and then he rode off.
Bye.
Although he did ride off to alert the authorities, but still that moment again where you just see him disappear, you're like,
especially different languages and everything a little bit too.
Yeah.
You're just like, I hope he understood.
100%.
Just because
Yes.
they couldn't actually talk, so they can't really know if they're even close to saying this.
Totally.
Well, I guess if they can read the note, then yes.
Yeah,
But
I don't know. They somehow communicated.
Yeah.
Thank God. I'm sure they looked like
skeletons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, if you see somebody in that situation, you're not going to be like, oh, are you out for like a nice hike?
I don't know.
No.
You've seen people in that situation. What's it look like?
Are you referring to you?
Yeah.
It was horrible. Terrible.
Are you referring to yourself? Come on.
Whatever. For Canessa and Parrado, it was over. We are now at day 72. 72 days.
In 1972.
In absolute hell. They had walked out on their own terms. Just like they said they would when they learned that the search was off. Mm-hmm. They rescued themselves. The rescue that followed was a media sensation.
Oh, I bet.
And it captivated the world. Chilean Air Force helicopters, guided by Parrado's directions, found the crash site on December 22nd. The first helicopter could only take 6 people due to the altitude and the difficult terrain. So,
yeah, you can't overload. You don't take any risks.
Amen. This is not the situation to overload the aircraft. 8 others had to spend another night in the mountains.
But one night after you know somebody's coming for you, you're good.
Oh my God, that's literally my next line. Zach, but they spent it knowing that the rescue was certain. Yeah. That's the
Unless
best.
they were getting picked up by American Airlines, in which case it might have just been delayed by 24 hours.
It never came. Oh my goodness gracious. So Carlos Paez Sr., who is Carlito's father, had never given up searching for his son. When the helicopter landed and the survivors emerged, the famous photograph of father and son embracing after 72 days became one of the most powerful images of human endurance ever captured. The story that the survivors told the world was met with absolute disbelief, and then horror, and then understanding. They had done the unthinkable to survive, but they had also shown what human beings are capable of when pushed beyond conceivable limits.
And the key thing is they survived.
That's it. And the survivors dealt with their experience in different ways, right? Roberto Canessa became a renowned pediatric cardiologist. Just like, what an amazing result of this story.
Everyone became a vegetarian.
He said that his time facing death taught him how to fight for life. Nando Parrado became a successful businessman and a motivational speaker, carrying the message that nothing is truly impossible if you refuse to give up. Some struggled with guilt over the choices they had made. Others found peace in knowing that their friends had not died in vain. Their sacrifice had kept others alive. The Catholic Church ultimately absolved them, recognizing that they had faced circumstances beyond normal moral judgment. So that's huge.
Yeah, for all these people that are that religious and everything to be
100%.
accepted and understood for what they had to do.
Literally forgiven. You are forgiven.
And that's what God's all about.
By the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
That's it.
A little less forgiving, but
The crash site in the Valley of Tears remains a pilgrimage destination for the families of those who died and the survivors who lived. It's a place where the impossible happened, where 16 human beings proved that the will to survive can overcome even the most hopeless circumstances. Today, more than 50 years later, the story of Flight 571 continues to inspire people facing their own mountains. It reminds us that when everything has been stripped away, comfort, certainty, hope, we still have one final choice: do with the time that remains. Years later, one survivor reflected on the experience with some really good insight, in my opinion. He described how he had always thought of life as the natural state and death as simply the end of living. But in that lifeless place, he gained a clarity that death was actually the constant and life was only a brief, fragile dream.
That's pretty good.
He said he felt like a dead man who had been temporarily blessed with life. Woof, that's a heavy one. Okay, and with that, Zach, that's our story.
It's a heck of a story. And good for you. I was wrong. I had an idea which one I thought it was, and I was incorrect.
Had you heard this story before?
I had not heard this one.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I am not the disaster-obsessed host, for sure. So I don't really go searching for all the disaster in this world.
This one I really stumbled upon naturally. The first time I heard it was the My Favorite Murder episode. And that was also, My Favorite Murder was how I learned about Tenerife, too. So they have really hooked me up with some crazy plane crash stories.
Send them a sticker.
Oh, my God.
How funny would it be?
Okay. If Georgia or Karen ever even acknowledged my existence in any way, I would enter like another level of human reality. I have been a fan of My Favorite Murder since, God, I think I started listening at like episode 14, which is crazy because now they're past episode 1500. I mean, they were one of the first true crime podcasts. Them and Cereal, and like Morbid's up there. But yeah, they're one of the OGs, and they are so awesome. Okay, there's a plug for My Favorite Murder. Go listen if you want to.
A hint that if anybody has a connection, please make my wife's dream come true.
Oh my God. Yes, I love them so much. They feel like friends to me. All right, if you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe, and tell a friend. For us, that's huge. We're a word of mouth podcast. We're old school. We're not really on the socials.
We have them. We're not really on them.
We're barely functioning. So yeah, word of mouth is just really huge for us.
Everybody, take away the lesson here. It's keywords that come from my daughter that get said to my wife all the time. Save yourself.
God, she does tell me that constantly whenever I ask for help.
Anytime that I'm tickling Alice or anything and she's calling for Aria to help, she says, save yourself.
It's so
But that is a real thing. And I'm actually going to desperately try to teach that to our daughter, that you can't count on anybody to save you. You have to do what you have to do for yourself.
It's so true. So true. All right, folks, join us next time when we will be exploring another transportation disaster story. Until then, remember to stow your tray tables, fasten your seatbelts, and prepare for the unexpected, because not every trip reaches its final destination.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. That's it, just a short one from you?
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Short and sweet. All right. Goodbye, you guys.
I'll miss you.
I'll miss you. Until next week.